Thank you guys so much for being on the show today. We're super excited to have you. I would love if you could both introduce yourselves.
Oh, sure. I'm Joan.
And I'm Jane.
And Jane's the older twin. I'm the younger one.
Which probably means something to a lot of people, some people, but I'm not sure.
We've been nurses since the 80s and then nurse practitioners over the last maybe 15 or more years. Jane has more experience than I did because I didn't want to go to college, but then I eventually followed her. And then we had our own private practice where it was, therapy twins. And we didn't share clients except for family or couples or partners or people who were mad at each other. And then we wrote a book and came out with our own mental illness. And it's called Under the Hood, and it's under our hood.
Love that. I would love if you could both tell me what your book is about.
It's about coming out, obviously, with our own mental illness because there's a stigma around mental illness in general. But there's also a stigma within the profession where it's kind of frowned upon. You don't come out with your own when you are a therapist, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what? The lady, the woman with her PhD, Marsha Linehan, who created dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT, she's one of my inspirations to do such a thing because she came out with hers. And there was an article in the New York Times. And some of her colleagues applauded her and some did not. So we just thought, screw it, let's come out with our own just because we're from a long line of rebels. And then we came up with a few tips on how we got better.
Really easy, really ADHD friendly, because we either have ADHD or some type of processing disorder, despite our higher education.
Yeah. Well, everyone knows nurses and doctors are the worst patients. And why should it be any different in psych?
Or PS, or the trauma we have been through. Because since we've retired, we read Bessel van der Kolk's book, even though we wrote a book and we promote our book, we promote his book as well. Because it is so, it's amazing because it sparked a memory in us. We've been nurses since the early 80s. And during that time in psychiatry, the psychiatrists and interviewing PhDs and whoever was interviewing this client focused on trauma. To the point where I even thought as a nurse where you sit in to make sure there's no inappropriate touching or verbal whatever, you protect the patient, where we thought it was like, wow, you're going pretty far here. You're upsetting the patient. Whereas Bessel van der Kolk said that, all of it, or was it the DSM? The original DSM, had schizophrenia related to trauma. Bipolar disorder.
The whole thing were stress responses to trauma.
Human reactions to trauma. And it was really bothersome. It even made us more mad about the stigma of mental illness. It's like, get over it. We all have some type of it.
We also just wanted to share with people, you don't have to wait as long as we did. Like maybe sometimes we hear about young people, they're afraid to fail and they think, a revelation came to me. I remember, when my son was born, I was already something. I was a grown up. I had a job and I knew things. And so I thought, my goodness, children grow up thinking you're brilliant at everything. And how am I going to be brilliant? And I mess up. So we just wanted to share with people that, even though you might not look at us as successful now.
Well, like Jane was saying, it's at any age, it's never too late to start. So it's never too late to start your education, or it's never too late to start a relationship, or it's never too late to become more positive. It really isn't. Yes.
Love that. What inspired you all to write your book?
So we wanted to come out with a book, and Sirius XM, we wanted to be on the radio, and we were peer reviewed, published, and twice, once in England, once in the United States. And he said, America doesn't want smart. Call me back when you wrote a book. And I was so insulted. I never wrote his name down. So wonderful. If he's listening, we'd love to be on the radio. So we always wanted to come out with a book, but we didn't like that stigma within the profession that was a bit over the top. We understand if you're unaware and you're fearful of something, you will have a very strong opinion, but within the profession, like easy now. I mean, you can joke all you want, but if you're I felt very judged. So anyway, we came out. That was my reasoning. Jane, I don't know what your reasoning was.
Well, it's funny because for the life of me, I can't figure it out either, because neither of us we were talking about it this morning. Neither of us were ever confident in the subject English. Our strong subjects were the sciences and math. And so if somebody told me that grad school was a lot of reading and writing, I probably wouldn't have gone. And so,
well, that's in nursing. Grad school is a lot of.
Well, yeah. I probably
we
wouldn't
don't
have
have
gone.
a master's in math.
And but we were taking some graduate level math classes, because that was another thing we just kept going on to school. And when I realized that graduate level math was more abstracty reading, and it wasn't, this is the answer, I was like, no, I'm very comfortable with 2 + 2 = 4. And please, I have a difficult time with certain changes. So for the life of me, I don't know why a book, but I went to a seminar and I heard a person, it's funny, I don't even know who it was, say that if you get yourself a journal, which journaling as a healing tool, please don't say that to me, because I won't, and I can't. But what she said, I know it was a she said, get yourself a pen or a pencil that's kind of pretty, and put the journal opened up on a place in your home where you're going to walk by it every day. And every day, whatever thought you have that you think is something about life, jot it down, or your topic, jot it down. And what they said was, in 1 year, you're going to have a book.
Yeah.
So in a year later, we not only had this journal filled, we had pads, different little Post-it things, and cut up papers. And that's our book. And because we're working on our second book, we have a basket right behind Joan's phone, where we're being on Zoom right now, loaded with little bits of scrap paper that, my goodness.
Oh, and the more we learned, the more you come out with your mental illness and show how you got better. We weren't exactly fully better. And then now, thank goodness we didn't come right. The ego has landed, because at this point now we understand it really is you do have a choice to be happy, and you have a choice to be happy. You have a choice to look at something in 2 different ways. It was in my face since birth. I would say, I like that. Jane might say, I like this. It was in my face to see what another person liked. It was in my face to share. I think that's why we're so skinny. We had to share an orange drink and a French fry at McDonald's. A small. I remember. And the hamburger, unfortunately, because we're vegan today, we had to have a whole hamburger ourselves. Anyway, so that was it. I think we answered you. I think.
We aren't sure.
When you were writing your book, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
Oh, the misfits.
Yes.
All the misfits. Mm-hmm. Because, Freddie Mercury said it at one point. They were asking Freddie Mercury, why would we ever sign you? Your music is just different, weird. Who's going to like this? He came up with that. He said it, well, in a movie, he said it. The misfits. And we never really fit in. I hid behind, we have an older sister, and we were in a mall, and they're in the mall, there's these giant vases with trees that come out of it. Now I'm an adult. I might even have I didn't get my bachelor's until I was 35, but I might have had that by then. And we saw a bunch of our cousins or relatives down below, and she yells out, hello, and she looks at me, and I am on my ankles and feet, hiding behind this vase so that no one could see me, that I was at the mall. And all she said at that point was, don't get me wrong, she's so kind. Oh, she's my second mother. All she said was, wow, you really do have problems. And it's like, I've been trying to tell you since birth that this is not working out. And she always thought I was better than other people. And I was like, no, the definition of anxiety, I just need to disappear. But I didn't have that, I didn't have powers back then to disappear. But yeah, I've disappeared, and I saw my favorite teacher in a Wawa's or a Krauser's. He was so inspirational. 8th, 6th grade, maybe. And less than 6th. Yeah, no, 6th. I hid like an adult. I had my master's by then. I was a therapist, and I hid. So what I knew, or what we knew after we wrote the first book, is obviously we're not at 100%. Who is? So the ego has landed, has really brought it back to us again. And I like slamming us and how we got better.
That's our second book. But Under the Hood, we wanted it to, what we realized from clients, they were saying we needed to take this show on the road and buy, how can I buy tickets to this thing? And this is just banter in the waiting room. But for some reason, we have this history of, obviously, takes one to know one, being these kind of misfit people that despite letters after our name, for education type letters, although we do have discussions about Joan's something, Joan.
My letterhood.
Yeah, she might have a letter. But, what we were trying to do is reach people that maybe were scared to death of going for therapy. They say people gravitate towards professions because they're looking for answers. And clearly I was looking for my own treatment. So going for therapy wasn't that scary after having been a psych nurse for many years. But prior to that, I mean, my goodness, for me, the thought of going to a chiropractor scared the life out of me. How silly is that? But anyway, so we wanted to reach people that either wouldn't even dream of going for therapy,
which I noticed as well. So what people said about our book is it's literally feels like we are sitting down with you in the waiting room on a rug all together, and they felt they were getting help just from the comedy of it. But the trauma, the admitting of trauma and our responses to it, which was not, appropriate all the time.
And now I think you're getting us all riled up. This is probably one of the reasons we wrote the book. Is, on a side note, my last name happens to be Buckley. That's my son's last name, my ex-husband's last name. And I have been,
but our original name
is Landino, and according to our DNA, we're 100% Italian. And with the name Buckley, I was honored to hear bigotry towards Italians, about Italians.
Yeah.
And one time I said nothing, and I was so upset and nervous. And I thought, oh my God, my fears were true, because I had heard that sometimes this group of people maybe would put down an Italian. And I thought, oh my goodness. And then the second time I used humor and unfortunately the other person got so uncomfortable at the time. And I was like, my goodness, please. And we laughed about it. And anyway, so I think because we are misfits, we have seen and heard judgment
and felt
it.
Yes.
And one of my former therapists, I thought, who really likes me, I heard judgment, and I'm trying to work that one into,
because I'm sure we've felt it.
Maybe it wasn't judgment toward me. Maybe he had a different thought on what our relationship was like, because I also worked with him, which, how frowned upon that would be. But anyway, we wanted people to know that we were real. And what I wanted to say about what Joan said was the thing that they felt the most, that I heard was help starting, was they felt hope. They were hopeful because these two weird therapists showed them that we're like you. And this is what helped us, not all the traditional stuff, although we did a lot of that too. I was never, ever, ever embarrassed to say I was on Lexapro or Zoloft, etc. And this is the side effect I had.
Right.
And it really helped. I felt, patients were so happy. And Joan heard a Surgeon General say something, inspiration for our book.
I thought it was Vivek Murthy, but I was born with a brain tumor and I used to have seizures. So sometimes my name recollection is completely off. So I don't know. I think that's who it was. And what he said was a family member, a distant family member of his suicided. And it is so upsetting, the stigma. He said that it is great that actors, actresses, billionaires, sports figures, anybody who's got this safety net, this monetary safety net, it's wonderful that you all, he might not have said it that way, are coming out with your own mental illness. But until the professionals in that profession come out, because that's what made me think, holy shit, is he correct? No one wants to come out. What is it, a 0%? Statistically, that's impossible. So that was another push until the professionals come out with their own mental illness. He didn't believe the stigma would go away.
And one of my idols, Marsha Lenehan, did.
And was frowned upon.
And I remember, I believe there was an MD that came out with her bipolar illness, and an MD that you worked with came out with, her sister's
her
illness.
twin sister had schizophrenia. Like, that's way easier than admitting you had some.
I don't know about that with all the DNA studies. Hello.
Yeah. Anyway, we're hopeful. We're hopeful that with our humor as well, because it's not scary. Everyone in that old building in the 80s, they stayed years. Average length of stay was 10 months back then, but people got better.
Yes.
My first primary patient, I was with her for 3 years before, we even discussed discharge planning. So people got better. And I just want to say that they're real people. They have senses of humor. Rap was big back in the 80s. And I remember trying to give out meds, and everyone was in the dining area, literally rap dancing. Because where we worked was this university teaching kindness of how healthcare could be. And we hope that comes back.
How long have you guys been writing, and what made you really sit down and start?
I think it was our mother. She's an identical twin as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember our mother would say things like, what, are you going to wait until I die to write the book? She would say things, such as that, you're going to wait. But she actually made us start.
Another answer, and I think it's because I can only speak for myself. When I was a young adult, we were honored to step in when our father was very overwhelmed with his eldest brother's care in his end of life. And Uncle MJ, as he likes to be called, passed, but lived into his 90s, needed some assistance. So Joan and I spent some time with him, and I grabbed this really pretty journal that a former client of mine had purchased for me.
I
remember the story. If you get a journal and a nice pen or pencil, you can write a book. And I thought that it might be nice, because he had a touch of dementia, but it might be nice. A few of our cousins would have liked to know his words of wisdom. So Joan and I, if Uncle Mars, and that's what I used to call Mars, Uncle Mars said something, we would write it down. Lovely things about relationships and love, and just lovely things from a 90-something-year-old man. And he really put a lot of emphasis on knowledge and education and growth and learning and treating women. He did say something to our father once about, if a man would just treat a woman a little bit better, she'd give him the world. And I thought, my goodness, a man who's not even married is standing up for women. I applauded him behind his back. And I believe that journal, because part of it is where we were writing things down. I believe that he, as an ancestor, that I ended up liking him. I grew up not liking him. Remember, I had a lot of judgment towards my aunts and uncles, and et cetera. And I ended up liking him. And I think that it helped me start looking more at everything I didn't like in my aunts, uncles, cousins was really what I didn't like in myself. Because our book, what we were told, and we're honored, please, we are so honored that it prevented 2 suicides that we are aware of.
What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
Because we've been talking about that, because book 3, because we even came up with the title of book 3, haven't written book 2 yet.
That's what we do.
That's it.
My son says we have a 3-hour coffee time
where we discuss it
in the
all.
morning. So it's definitely a 3-hour like Gilligan's Island was supposed to be a 3-hour tour. It was a 3-hour talking back and forth. And we actually have little pieces of paper where we jot things down.
Mostly Jane, because my handwriting is unlegible or illegible. One of those things, even to myself at times, because we were audited a couple of times. And, I heard from a couple of people that if the insurance company cannot read your writing, you'll be fined. And I thought, wow. I guess it's correct, because I did actually want to know sometimes what I wrote. So yeah, Jane will do that.
And we
postpone a lot.
We postpone a lot, but what we also do is we know now that we can't do it all by ourselves, because like I said, English was not our strong suit in school. And so we know we're going to get an editor. It's just a matter of, who will that be?
Yeah.
It could just be a friend that has a degree in literature, or
actually we have a cousin who has a degree in literature.
Boom. Right there.
So yeah, it's really difficult. And with two of us, I think it's even worse, because when one of us thinks it's time to write, the other one might not. So it has to be both of us have to feel it. Oh, that's Jane's terminology every so often. I'd say, oh, did you, email Barnes and Noble or the bookstore? And she said, I'm not feeling it yet. Wow. So it's I find co-authors are even more difficult.
Yeah. Because as Sidney Poitier said about himself and who was it? Harry Belafonte on a talk show, someone said to Sidney Poitier that you and Harry Belafonte have been friends, but also not speaking at times. And what's that about? And he said after all, there are two egos in the room.
And that's and really, if we break it down, ego can ruin every relationship. Boom, every time.
Yes.
It has a terrific track record.
Comedians have said, do you want to be right or happy? And they're the comedian, they're usually talking about the traditional male, female kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, ego. But we came up with the title of book 3.
Which now will really motivate.
Which will now that's
to finish
the backtrack.
Yep.
It's like
finish it up.
Read the directions, put the vacuum cleaner together from the bottom up. A lot of people have that type of
ADD or learning disability.
And we do. So now that having the title of book 3, it will motivate us more to start writing, spending time.
Let's just say you do not have to be on a medication to read our book. It's very friendly, very quick to the point. It's beautiful. Actually, the 2 master's degrees that I have, the forensic science, there was a class because, it has to be truthful and to the point of the best of your knowledge. And you don't add in adjectives and adverbs because that's a judgment or whatever you thought. So you would get docked if your paper on such and such was too many words. And then I followed in Jane's footsteps, like I said, I do all the time, and said, well, she has her master's in nursing. I best do that. And all of a sudden, those papers, they were like, Joan, but you're not explaining anything. And I'm like, yeah, concretely I was. So yeah, it was really interesting to see the difference between forensic science and nursing science. Very interesting.
And thank God nursing is a little bit
kinder.
A little
kinder.
Humanity and, the breathing individual probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love it. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
Oh, I'm sure incense burning. There's one that helps you focus.
Well, we don't really focus well. We don't. Sometimes, once in a great while, we can follow through. But that's why I think we have all those little pieces of paper and we write it down. The way we have to get all those pieces of paper and put them all together, like you were going to put your paper together, is it's
you model it.
So what we do, we start early in the morning for that. And Joan has to say, well, Jane, I'm going to sit next to you. You're going to write the book. You're going to write, because my handwriting's a little better. We don't do anything on the computer. So we try not to set ourselves up for failure, because if we tried to work on the computer, we would fail, because we're 62. It's just not our genre. It's paper and pencil. And if we try to start too early in the morning, I know I would fail. Because I know that about myself. And in different times of my life, I needed background noise to be focused versus other times I needed quiet. And we try to, adjust with that.
Oh, and we have
Like
been
that.
looking at these, everybody says it's just as easy to be positive as it is negative. Not so much. I think our brains are more wired to be, I don't like that, but I'm not sure that I, love that. So there's a lot of stuff like focusing your mind on with music. I was always the one who wanted complete silence, but now I can hear the birds or people working on the building, and I would rather hear the music or those chimes or something dull.
I
so
wonder.
we can then write.
Yeah, I wonder if secretly I'm writing this book too, especially the ego one has to be written because I know my ego has been too big. It's one of the things for me. I wasn't humble enough in life. So I'll tell you, because and I know that in psych, with cognitive behavioral therapy or, therapy, discord versus I want peace in my life. Do you want to be right or happy? Sometimes you've got to imagine yourself on that canoe and, the river's flowing in a certain direction. And if you can't spend your every waking hour rowing against the tide, so the only way I was able to, speaking of, if we could jump to twins, and some people think we are mirror twins, Joan knew how to keep a clean place. I wasn't very good with housekeeping. And so just, somebody taught me, you don't have to do the whole bathroom in one day.
Right.
And forever now, I've shared with anyone who cares to hear it is, oh, no, I would clean the sink one day. I would never force myself to do the other one. Just like with dinner, am I really going to cook all of that at 5 o'clock? No, I'm starting at the day before, maybe 10 o'clock in the morning to cook something else. I want life to be a little easier. And that's how I think the only way people like us with these learning disabilities of some kind could write a book is to go with the flow of our own sloth personalities.
Yeah.
Love that. What is your favorite writing snack or drink?
Air popped popcorn.
Yes.
I don't prefer oil on it. I prefer black salt actually, so I could see the salt on it. There's also this brick salt that the black salt's tastier.
She means the Hawaiian black
charcoal.
salt. She doesn't mean the kala namak. If I
Oh,
said that
God,
wrong,
definitely
it has
not.
that sulfur eggy thing, which is terrific on
I
everything.
don't like that at all. And my favorite drink while you're writing is to have a kombucha, but it's
She likes hard kombucha.
it's called hard kombucha because I believe
And kombucha's made with tea. So
green tea.
that would be our cool drink would be kombucha or hard kombucha. And if it was a warm drink, we love hot tea with honey, lemon, all kinds of different hot teas. We love teapots.
Jane, with your writing, you're telling
Exactly.
her every drink. Oh, okay.
That's it. Those are the drinks I like, hot
yes.
versus cold. You know what it was years ago? Wine. It's not anymore though.
Oh no, wine, you had to edit so much the next day. That was a joke. Yeah, the wine plus it spilled on those pages and smudged the words.
Yeah.
No.
Someone bought us in fact, the previous editor had bought us a poster as a gift, and it was Ernest Hemingway that said, write drunk, ... edit sober. And
bad idea.
Unless I got that the wrong way. I don't
know. No, it was that, but it wasn't a good idea.
What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
That is hilarious.
Very funny because, I only read in school when they told me to. And the very first book that I really loved reading, I'm going to say anything about animals, but it was a vampire book. So that one I couldn't put down. And Bessel van der Kolk about PTSD. So anything, I guess, obviously that I resonate with, I'm extremely skinny, tall. I used to want to be looking like a vampire because if I bought any more makeup to make me look pale as if I had no blood in my body. And because come to find out when you're bullied or made fun of, Jane and Joan, I'm Joan, we're premature. So our skin is very,
so I like to tell people in case this helps anybody, because, when ADD and people getting diagnosed with ADD didn't happen until we were grown-ups. Every once in a while you'd hear about the little boy, and it was always a little boy that couldn't sit still. Maybe he got some Ritalin, but the inattentive person never really got diagnosed. So I graduated high school with doing very, very well at the top of my class, having never read a book.
But there were cliff notes back then.
And the first time I read a book front to back, and unfortunately I don't recall the name of it because I wanted to know the genre, but I have no clue, was I was pregnant and I had a belly. And what I now know was, unfortunately, my son does have ADD too now, but what I think may have happened was my son's attention in his fetus form helped me read this book, unless it's some kind of hormonal thing that somehow, or this natural instinct to survive, I had a skill to be able to read.
But Jane's are most likely self-help. Her favorite book is
Joan. It is not
the math.
No, it's not my favorite. See, Joan, stop it. Talk about yourself.
Good people do bad things.
She can talk about herself. Because my tastes change. And right now, the books I like to read, I actually am at a pause. I can't seem to get into it. So I'm working on it. But I've read nonfiction to fiction.
Love it. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become writers?
Well, I mentioned Marsha Linehan, but I don't think she was an author except for her own coming out with her own mental illness.
Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the Four Agreements. Definitely. When I saw the size of that little book and the words that I could understand, well, not in that one. The one I read was, Jane, which one did I read? The one where you
Joan read either The Voice of Knowledge.
The Voice of Knowledge, that was the one I read. And I understood it. So that inspired me. I said to Jane, look at it, so little and we can do this. So we did it.
And yes. I did go to a self-help thing where I got to see a bunch of people speaking, and afterwards stood in line and got their book and they autographed it, etc. And Joan is right. One of my favorite books, but I never read it. But my favorite title is by an author, Debbie Ford, a self-help guru, Debbie Ford, who was big on the shadow effect and stuff. But I never read the book, and it's Why Good People Do Bad Things. And the funniest thing ever, because my girlfriend said, you look like Debbie Ford. I had short, dark hair at the time. And Debbie Ford was the mother of a son. And I just really connected this and that. And she believed that everything people say and do is all about them. And I just took that as my own personal assignment. And because I didn't read the book. And a psychic once told me the book I was supposed to read by her, which was phenomenal that the psychic could even know that I liked Debbie Ford, was something about light chasers. And I used to own it. I never read it, though.
What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
I would say that it is okay that if you go to something like our book, you can just open the book at any juncture, and you could read a paragraph or half the page that day. And what I would say is, if that's all you can do, or like Jane said, because we used to do this as well, start at the bottom and going up, something's going to resonate with you. Mm-hmm. And again, this is the hardest thing for me to learn my whole life. Everything we say and do really is about us. Dorothy, it really was always you. So I would say, figure out what those words really mean, and realize that's part of you. That is part of you. You don't have to keep it. You don't have to keep something you don't like about yourself. You can say out loud to the universe that I no longer, whatever, and practice, like every actor and actress talks about. They always say, being in a role in a movie, you have to become that person, and you're faking it, aren't you?
Oh, the new reader, just get one of those. Mine was get any self-helpy thing where it's every day. There's you could do a year with Rumi, a year with Jesus, a year, and it's one of those daily things. Just read that one thing every day, even if it's one sentence.
And you'll be
get
surprised that all
Yeah.
of a sudden you like that and you'll go to it and you'll
Yeah.
expect it. And sometimes you'll want more and you go to something bigger.
And if you can't do that, don't take a break and watch movies or documentaries,
Audiobooks.
Audiobooks, anything like that, because sometimes people cannot put their eyes to the page and read. And a lot of it is just look at the air we're breathing. Sometimes it's really toxic and people feel foggy.
What would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
Have fun and just write anything down. And you don't even know what it is. You might think, my goodness, I have nothing to say except that how hard it is to get out of bed every morning. Write that down. Just write anything down.
And write down certain quotes that you resonate with, because sometimes that helps you when you start to outline your chapters. Write chapter names down. Sometimes I'll think something like, our mother was an identical twin as well. So, I might say something like, oh, the red pocketbook, because when you're a twin, one person gets it. The other one spends the rest of their life trying to get that same item. So when you think of a catchy phrase or whatever,
Yes,
or even if you
yes.
like the name of a tune, you can change it.
Mm.
Or a quote, sometimes that can be the name of your chapter. So anything is useful.
We have met countless people that have had wonderful titles to their own personal book that they've never really written at all.
Yes.
I say grab that pad or journal and a pen, or tie that pen or pencil to something so it stays in that one area. Because when you have that thought, and be like Wayne Dyer. Apparently, Wayne Dyer was wonderful at hearing from other self-help gurus and combining it in a way for people to really hear. So even if you heard it from someone else.
Yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be in stone. Remember, our first title we thought was going to be Four Glass Walls and a Fluorescent Light.
Yes.
Memoirs of the Twins. But instead it melded into Under the Hood, because we felt very passionate about other people knowing, not everyone is put together like you. And if I went to I did go to therapists. Sometimes you look at the ones that are so well dressed and so put together, and you're thinking, wow, I'm more inadequate than I thought coming into this room. So, that's what I would say. Just write you write your thoughts down, and then your book will kind of steer its way to what you're really interested in.
You don't have to be good in English. You could have failed English. It doesn't have to be complete sentences. Every human being is special, and everyone has something important to say. So even if you think you aren't good at anything, you really are.
Yes, and that's what we would tell a new writer. Your story can help somebody else, or your whatever the ones
your
are.
experience.
Yes, and it can be changed. Doesn't have to be true.
Where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place to connect with you?
Well, I'll say that's wonderful that you brought that up. The best way to find the book is on Amazon. You would just write Under the Hood. But unfortunately, we didn't know at the time that mechanics love that as a title of their How to Fix Your Car. They called it Under the Hood. We didn't know that. We didn't do the research. So if you want to put in Therapy Twins, that gets you further.
Yes, it gets you a lot further.
We decided to change the cover of the book so you could find it. So you will see identical twins looking at each other on the cover.
Yeah.
You won't be able to miss it. We're not a car. And that's the easiest way to get it. And then you asked
to
one
find
other
us,
thing.
it's just therapytwins.com, www.
But for a signed copy, if you wanted to, you take a photo of the front of your book, right? Or the part where we would sign, and we'd sign it in Adobe ink back. Or is that not?
That's technology.
That's not actually in the book. Nope.
No, but if that's where technology is going and people aren't, that's wonderful. See that?
The ebook could totally be signed that way. The other one, we are going to have some book signings at a bookstore, but we of course haven't scheduled that yet.
Because
we need a personal.
Jane didn't feel it yet. That I didn't feel like
a lot of writers. You need personal assistance.
I need a special invitation to.
That's where you would find us. Thank you.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. We're so grateful we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Love